Welcome back to college football DraftKings breakdown. Who does that feel good to say? We have college football in about 72 hours, 48 hours, whatever it is. It is near, my friends. Welcome back. Hopefully you were able to gain some knowledge, hopefully gain a little bit of cash in your pocket last year with this show and kind of just breaking things down overall, as we talk about usually. Mainly play DraftKings over here, and we talk about gambling and betting as well, but trying to mix in a little bit of FanDuel as well here and there. I probably won't play as much this weekend, being that it's just a much shorter slate overall. So I honestly didn't really know, should I do a show? Should I not? I'm like, dude, you've been waiting months for this. Jump on, break down the 3-gamer. Why not? So let's do it. Before we get started, if you aren't already, please subscribe. Please hit the like button. Feel free, as always, hit me up on the X at the Notorious VJL or drop us a comment here in the show. Feel free to drop in your takes. If you agree, if you disagree, it's all good and helps our little community out. So let's rock and roll. 3-gamer to kick off the year on DraftKings. Not the most exciting slate, but again, beggars can't be choosers. Football's back, whatever. We open things up in across the pond here. Florida State takes on Georgia Tech. Florida State right now is hovering around 11.5-point favorite, 12-point favorite, with a total of 55 in that game, 55.5 or so. This is an interesting one. You look at the matchup and right off the bat, you want to say, wow, Florida State's going to blast these guys. But Georgia Tech, in my opinion, is a lot sneakier. And this is a challenging matchup for Florida State, I think, for a few reasons. One, Georgia Tech last year, they were 8-1 against the spread in the last 9 games of the season. 8-1 against the spread last 9 times they played Florida State. And they covered 5 of 6 to end last year. So Georgia Tech had some momentum definitely last season. You look at it, Georgia Tech is returning 16 starters, where Florida State is only returning 10, and 2 of those are coming from special teams. So you look at it, really 8 starters for Florida State coming back. That's what happens when you're a good program, right? A lot of guys go to the NFL. They lost some to the portal. But the continuity and the cohesion for Florida State is obviously something that is a question mark early on. I think where Florida State brings back a lot of experience is on the offensive line. I forget, I read earlier how many starts they have kind of combined, but it's a lot. They have a very veteran group on the offensive line, which should help them, especially with the way Florida State likes to play. And I anticipate even more so this year. Some of the guys that they lost, right? Jordan Travis, Benson, they lost both starting receivers, Johnny Wilson, Keon Coleman, and Jaheim Bell. So a lot of production that they need to replace. They did bring in, some veteran pieces and some guys that were there. I just think you're going to see Florida State kind of come out and try to play bully ball here. DJ has never really been a quarterback that you can just lean on to throw it 40, 50 times and kind of just play hero ball out there. That's not really what he does successfully. So I think at the end of the day, you're going to see a heavy dose of Florida State's running game, and leaning again on the offensive line and those running backs that obviously have some experience. So with that, I kind of like the under in this game, to be honest, 55.5. I could see, again, just Florida State getting a lead, sitting on it, trying to play good defense. But in terms of DFS plays, kind of jumping into it here, I think right off the bat, in my opinion, Haynes King is the side that you want in this one. Number one, price adjusted, right? He's only $7,100. It's a big difference off of DJ up top there in the 9s. And I think you can get the same value from Haynes King, again, even if he's in a negative game script. This is a guy who will run. We saw last year he was easily able to put up 7 to 10 points or 5 to 10 points a game with his legs. You mix in for him, he's got a few veteran pass catchers coming back now, experienced guys. I just think the value is on the Georgia Tech side here. Not saying that they're the better football team, but I think, again, with you look at momentum, cohesion, all that kind of stuff, I like the Georgia Tech side from a DFS perspective. So Haynes King at 7,100. I think when you look at the pass catchers, for me, Eric Singleton at 5,300, who averaged 13 DraftKings points a game last year, and Malik Rutherford, 5,200, are the two main pass catchers. I love those pairing options. It's cheap. Not that we really need it on this slate, but those are two guys that I think you could easily single or double stack here with King and feel pretty good about where you're going. Again, Florida State is insanely talented. I'm not expecting Georgia Tech, even if they can pull this out or keep it close, to put up 30 here. But I also don't think this is going to be a spot where Florida State does that either. So if you're going to be getting exposure to this game, which I do recommend, those are kind of my favorite plays. On the pass catching side of the ball for Florida State, again, a lot of unknown here, right? You've got a few guys in there that are returning. You've got one transfer that's added to the mix, but the one guy that I'm going to be playing quite a bit here from the receiving end for Florida State is Jaylen Brown. He's 4,800. He's a transfer from LSU. Guys, he's an absolute complete burner. That's his game. He's reports, running route tree a little bit better in some of these other underneath routes and middle of the field, but his game is over the top. And that's where DJ obviously can't get home. He's got a big arm. Jaylen Brown at 4,800 only needs one or two to really pay off this price tag. And I think that's where they're going to really try to attack Georgia Tech, is over the top. Run the ball, try to hit a few big ones. That's kind of the game plan in my how I'm kind of evaluating it. So I like Jaylen Brown here at 4,800 quite a bit. Going to the running backs, look, Jamal Haynes for Georgia Tech is probably the preferred play, just because, again, 6,300, he's the bell cow for this team. He is going to get the rock pretty much all the time from the running back position. He's going to be used in the passing game as well. Going over to Florida State, I will have exposure to both Toafili and Williams, who transferred in, but both guys are expensive, 7,700 and 7,100 for Florida State. And you're going to get Jalen Lucas mixing in as well. So you've got kind of like a 2 to 3 headed monster here in the backfield. The only problem, again, is if it's expensive, right? And on a shorter slate, you kind of got to get it right. If you think that they just absolutely hammer Georgia Tech on the ground and both guys get home, hell, you could play both of them and just think that that's the way they beat them. But I do think taking shots on both of these guys, Williams and Toafili, is smart. But again, if you pick wrong, you're in a heap of trouble here. So Florida State, I'll probably look at ownership as well on those two guys and try to get a sense of which one may be coming in lower, because I do think they are going to split carries. And again, that's what Florida State wants to do. So I don't think going away from it completely is the answer, but just be a little bit cautious that neither of those guys is going to be the kind of bell cow for the team. So that's kind of where I'm leaning in this game. Moving on to Montana State here versus New Mexico. You've got a 12.5 point favorite, Montana State, 54.5 total. The news that kind of broke here today is Scottree Humphrey is listed as the starting running back there. Adam Jones is the number 2 with some injuries that happened in camp. Montana State runs the football. There is no doubt about it. Last year, I want to say I heard they're 60% plus in terms of run versus pass. So that's what they want to do. But I do think their quarterback, Tommy Malo, 7K is in play. He doesn't throw the ball a ton, but he's efficient, and he does use his legs quite a bit as well. So at 7K, I think it's a pretty good play here. He's very similar, in my opinion, to kind of like what you're hoping for Haynes King. So Malo, he's 7K. He's probably going to be pretty popular. And then you've got Humphrey and Jones in the 4Ks that you could go to as well. New Mexico, I do not have a lot of interest in, guys, just being totally honest. I don't think they are very enticing at all. We'll get to the next game as well, but I think they're probably my least favorite on the slate to play. If you want to take some dart throws, I'll try to put some plays out there based on their depth chart that gets released today or tomorrow on who I like. But Ty McCullough for Montana State at receiver at 4,900 is probably my favorite target. He, again, is not going to get 20. He's not going to get 12, 15 targets a game necessarily, but he's very efficient. And at around 14 DraftKings points a game he averaged last year. I think he's a pretty strong play. On the other side of the ball, I do think the only guy that was listed on the depth chart as like the starting receiver is Luke Wysong at 4,700. So if you decide to stack up this Montana State side of things, you could bring it back with Wysong, or if you just need a pay down guy, he's in play as well. You'll notice here too, I'm not really taking any like major shots unless news breaks on some of these like 3K guys or 3,500. You're going to hear, all the reports and guys like leaking like, wow, this guy looked great in camp. And this like true freshman was popping. It's week 0. And we're going to face the same thing next week. We just don't know until we know. Some of those guys that you're hearing that have looked electric and all these amazing things, we don't know what these teams' plans are, right? Like, are they going to redshirt these guys even though they look good? Are they going to be in a deep rotation? Are they going to be featured? Like, you're taking total dart throws. So if you're going to play like really big GPPs and try to take down, the massive tournament, absolutely take your shots on guys if you hear that they look good in camp. But I tend to not play those tournaments, especially early on, and kind of play it safe a little bit. So that's kind of my take on that one. Game number 3, we got SMU rolling up to Reno, Nevada to take on the Wolfpack. We have SMU as a 24.5 point favorite, total 56.5. I like SMU in this one, man. I do. I think they're going to absolutely blast and smash Nevada here. They're one of my favorite sleeper teams, SMU is this year. Moving into ACC play is obviously a little bit tougher, but you've got this coaching staff cohesion coming back for, I think, their 3rd year, Rhett Lashley. You've got Preston Stone. You've got 2 running backs. Well, you had 3 before Wheaton went down, but you've got that. You've got multiple receivers coming back, offensive line, defense. That's a very like veteran team. And I think SMU is going to be ready to roll right out of the gates here. The one thing that kind of threw me is Preston Stone and Jennings has been reported that they're both going to play at quarterback, which makes things a little bit dicey here. Preston Stone coming in at 8,900 is the guy that I came into the slate being like, yeah, I'm probably going to lock button him. But obviously he had a major injury last year. And I think they just like both quarterbacks. So, I don't know if their approach is going to be let both of these guys play, let the cream rise to the top for when things get serious. But I might still take some shots on Stone just because I do think he's the better player. But if they get out to a big lead early on, you could see a 50-50 quarterback split here. Or you could see Preston Stone be done, halfway through the 2nd, 3rd quarter. Which is he going to hit value? Maybe still on a short slate. Depends how they score those points, but 8,900 is a lot to pay. So again, I think there's enough value on the slate if you want to take some shots on him. Once again, will probably come down to ownership. If I see Stone is going to be very low owned, I'll definitely have some shares. If he's going to be higher owned, I might have a few, but I'm not going to be overweight on him in this situation based on the reports. So unless something else pops here in the next 48 hours, it's hard to kind of evaluate what's going to happen here at the quarterback position. SMU is also challenging at every other position. Multiple times last year, I got absolutely scorched and burned because I played the wrong running back for SMU. They have a massive rotation in the backfield as well as at receiver. Jalen Knighton, with Kamar Wheaton going down, it clears things up a little bit. You've got Jalen Knighton at 6,600 and LJ Johnson at 55. Both of those guys are live, in my opinion. But do not be shocked. And I'm just telling you this because I lost a ton of money last year with SMU because I would play Knighton. And for whatever reason, he would get 2 carries and LJ Johnson would have 16 and go bonkers. They ride the absolute hot hand to the definition of it. So, may the odds be ever in your favor if you decide to do it. And hopefully you can get home and hit the right, hit the right place on the roulette wheel. But I think both guys are live. On the other side, you've got Sean Dollars, 5,600 with Pat Garwo not expected to play. I think, he's an okay play there. Likely negative game scripts. Hopefully he can get involved in the passing game a little bit, or he can pop in a touchdown, in garbage time or something like that. So I don't think it's out of the question that he is a decent play, but not probably my favorite on the slate just based on how I think this one's going to go. At receiver, I'll probably be fading the Nevada passing game. Even though they're going to be down, they're just not very good. Their quarterback's not very good. If you want to take some shots again, it is what it is. It's a 3-game slate. You can do whatever you want and not be called crazy, I would say. But like SMU, the passing side of things is tough too. Like they're going to legit rotate like 6, 7, 8 guys. And same thing. You had guys last year that you would play, an SMU stack. Preston Stone would go, bonkers, and his receiving option that you decided to play that day, or even 2 guys, would combine for like 3 catches, and 2 other guys would, have 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like it was just like, okay, like what are we doing here? So it's very tough to stack up is what I'm saying. So once again, good luck if you decide to stack up SMU. Hopefully you get the right combination of guys. You may not need it, again, on a 3-game slate, depending on the tournament you're playing. If you're in the right game environment and a team wins, 48-3, like if you're on the 48 side, like you may just get home from sheer volume and lack of performance from other teams here. But I do think SMU is a team that I want to get some exposure to. Again, I just can't give you any names right off the bat because I'm going to be in the same boat as you guys, again, rolling a dice and seeing what it lands on and just kind of mixing and matching and hoping it comes out correct. So that's kind of my take. Again, I like SMU. I like Montana State. I really like Georgia Tech. Those are the 3 teams I'm probably going to be looking to stack up. And then Florida State, I'm going to be more mixing and matching and pulling off pieces based on how much I have left over to get exposure to all these guys. So some of the receiving options, some of the running backs, and that's how I'm going to play the slate. Once again, hopefully this helps. Quick little 3-gamer, quick little hit before we get to the big one starting next week, the bigger slates. Good luck, everybody. If you haven't already, again, subscribe, hit the thumbs up, and good luck. We'll see you next week.